All right, so here we are. We're diving into the grand finale of Jesus' most famous speech, the Sermon on the Mount. This is Matthew chapter 7, and folks, this is where it all gets real. All those huge world-changing ideas we've talked about, this is where they collide with our everyday lives and our actual choices. This is where the rubber meets the road.
I mean, think about it. How do you possibly wrap up a speech that's already turned everything upside down? Well, you don't just give a nice little summary. No, you issue a challenge. This last chapter isn't some gentle conclusion. It's a direct, in-your-face call to action. It forces every single person listening to make a choice.
And right away, Jesus brings this whole thing right down to earth. Before he gets into any grand cosmic theology, he gets super practical. He starts with maybe the hardest part of our lives, how we deal with other people.
And he kicks it off with one of the most famous and maybe one of the most misused lines in history. Judge not. You hear it all the time, right? People use it to shut down any kind of criticism. But is that what it actually means?
See, the key thing to get here is that this is not a blanket ban on using your brain or having discernment. Not at all. Jesus is condemning a very specific thing, that arrogant, hypocritical kind of judgment. The kind where we puff out our chests and act like we're the judge and jury over someone else's life. And the way he illustrates this, well, you'll never forget it.
This imagery is just, wow, it's brilliant. It's almost funny, right? He paints this picture of us trying to point out a tiny little speck of sawdust in our friend's eye, all while we've got a giant wooden plank, a 2x4 sticking out of our own eye. The point is so simple, it's profound. Deal with your own giant vision-blocking problems first. Then, and only then, can you even see clearly enough to help somebody else.
And this whole section on how we treat people, it builds to this incredible climax, what we all know today as the Golden Rule. But you have to see how revolutionary this was. Most philosophies had a passive version, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. But this is totally different. It's a radical active command. Go out of your way to do good for others, the same good you'd want for yourself. He says this one idea basically sums up the entire point of the ancient scriptures.
Okay, so after laying that foundation for how to relate to people, the focus of the sermon totally shifts. It goes from the horizontal, us with each other, to the vertical, our relationship with God.
And the way we're told to approach God, it's just beautiful in its simplicity. Ask, seek, knock. You can feel that, right? The intensity is building with each word. But the promise attached to every single one is the same. God is not hiding from you. He's not unwilling to listen. He responds when we actually come to him.
To really drive home what God is like, Jesus uses this deeply human analogy. He basically asks the crowd, hey, which one of you, if your kid asks for some bread, is going to hand them a rock? Or if they ask for a fish, you're going to give them a snake? His point is so powerful. If we, as flawed, imperfect human parents, know how to give good things to our kids, how much more can we trust our perfect Father in heaven to do the same? Our confidence in prayer isn't about how good we are. It's about how good he is.
And right about here, the whole tone of the sermon just shifts again. It gets really intense. Jesus starts laying out these stark choices. There's no middle ground, no gray area. It's two paths, two kinds of teachers, and two foundations you can build your life on.
So the first choice is about the road you're walking on. There's this wide gate that opens up to a broad, easy path. It's crowded, it's popular, it's what everyone else is doing. But Jesus warns, that road leads to destruction. Then there's this other gate. It's narrow, the path is hard, and he says very few people even find it. But that's the one that leads to life. The message is pretty unsettling. The right way is almost never the easy way.
And that harder path? Yeah, it's got its own set of dangers. Jesus says to be on the lookout for false prophets. And look at this description. It's chilling. On the outside, they look like harmless sheep, like they're part of the flock. But on the inside, they're ravenous wolves. They're just wearing a disguise so they can get close and cause damage. So, how are you supposed to spot them?
Well, Jesus says you've got to inspect the fruit. It's a principle straight from farming. A good, healthy tree naturally produces good fruit. A sick, diseased tree produces bad, rotten fruit. It's common sense, right? You don't pick grapes from a thorn bush. And it's the same with people. You can tell who a teacher really is not just by their fancy words, but by the actual results of their life and their teaching. You look at the fruit.
But here's the twist. The warning isn't just about other people trying to fool you. The sermon turns to the most dangerous deception of all, fooling yourself.
Jesus paints this terrifying picture of Judgment Day where people come up to him and say, "Hey, we did all this amazing stuff in your name. We prophesied. We did miracles." And his response is just shocking. He says, "I never knew you." It's a huge wake-up call that it's not about the big, flashy stuff or saying the right words. It's about a real relationship with God that leads you to actually do what he wants.
And all of this builds to the sermon's epic final illustration. You've got two builders. They both hear the exact same teaching from Jesus. Both of them decide to build a house. The only difference, the only variable, is the foundation. The wise builder hears the words, and then he acts on them. He builds his house on solid rock. The foolish builder, he hears the exact same words and does nothing. He builds on shifty, unstable sand. And Jesus says the storms of life are going to come and batter both houses. The only one left standing is the one built on the rock of obedience.
So, wow. After all that, the tough lessons, the stark choices, these incredible images, how did the people who were actually there, sitting on that hillside, react? Well, the text tells us their reaction was immediate, and it was huge.
The text says they were astonished. But, that word in the original language is so much stronger. It means they were absolutely floored, blown away, stunned into silence by what they had just heard.
But why? This is the key. These people weren't strangers to religious teaching. They had scribes and teachers in their synagogues every week. So what was it about Jesus' sermon that was so radically different it just left them speechless?
And here it is, the final, crucial reason. The scribes, they always taught by quoting other people. Their authority was borrowed. It was always, as Rabbi so-and-so said, or as the tradition teaches. It was all secondhand. But Jesus didn't quote anyone. He spoke as if he was the source. He spoke with a direct, personal authority they had never, ever heard before.
And that just leaves us with this final, massive question, doesn't it? The one that echoes through this entire sermon. It wasn't just what he said, but the foundation his words were built on. So what is it that truly gives any teaching its authority? What gives words the kind of power that you can actually build your entire life on them and know that they'll stand firm against the storm? That's the question the Sermon on the Mount leaves ringing in our ears.